everybody got your book. Hopefully you've read the first two chapters, which are chapters 2 and 3, okay? We're not going to do 1. I talked about 1 pretty much last time. A lot of the things in 1 were chapter 1 were part of what I was talking about last time, okay? About different economic systems, socialist system being very inefficient, very wasteful, free market systems being much more efficient. And they have to be, right? Businesses in a free market systems have to be efficient in order to survive. They can't waste resources, right? They go out of business. They have higher costs, like the companies I used to work for, okay? This is true. There used to be a joke. I would go to work for a company, and pretty soon it starts going downhill. And then out of business. That's happened to, I think, 3 companies that I've worked for, right? Although somebody did say to me, you know, Mark, if we only had 10,000 people like you, we would be so much better off. Unfortunately, we have 20,000 like you. So you don't get it? Oh, well, bad joke. All right. Now, let's talk about the fundamental problem that we all face, that all societies face, which is really the heart of economics, which is the problem of scarcity, okay? Scarcity means that resources are insufficient. How do I get more of these white... Just hit the white page here? Or this one? Yeah. Not going to give me more? Nope. It's not very smart. Is it these? Yeah. There we go. All right, great. Good. Thank you. All right, let's see if this works. Yes. And where's the eraser? All right, good. Okay, so we have a problem of scarcity. Now, scarcity doesn't mean that goods are not abundant. It means that resources, the things that we use to produce goods and services, are insufficient to produce all of the things that we as human beings could desire. Our wants are unlimited in nature. There is no end to the things that we could desire to have. And most people aren't satisfied with what they've got. They want more, right? But there's a limit to our ability to satisfy those more that we want, all right? So we have to decide with our resources what we're going to use them for and what we're going to give up. As we're going to see, there's always a trade-off, okay? A trade-off between having this and having that. You cannot have both. You don't have enough time to do everything that you could possibly desire. You have to pick and choose. We don't have enough resources to do all of the things that we could desire. So we have to decide what we're going to have and what we're going to give up. It's the fundamental problem that everybody faces at all periods of time, all societies face, until we reach Star Trek era, right? Where you've got, what do they call those things that they just say, give me a cup of coffee and it appears, right? And until we reach that level of development, then we're always going to face the problem of scarcity. All people at all points in time, there are insufficient resources to produce all of the things that we could desire to have, okay? Now, what are we talking about in terms of resources? First off, land, okay? Now, land doesn't mean dirt, okay? It doesn't mean the ground. Land is all of the natural resources that the earth provides, okay? Iron ore, grain, you name it, all right? Uranium, all right? So anything that the earth provides comes under the category land. We also have to have what we call capital, okay? You will see this often as fixed capital, okay? This is machines and buildings in which production takes place, okay? This is productive machinery, like I used to sell, and the factories in which production takes place. That's known as capital, okay? Land, capital, and then finally, labor, okay? These two pieces are useless without labor, right? Somebody has to run the machines, okay? Transforming raw materials into finished goods, okay? However, these things by themselves just sit there. Somebody has to assemble these things. Now, in a non-free market economy, it's the government's job to put these pieces together, to acquire the resources, to create and supply the machinery and to supply the labor to produce goods and services. But in a non-free market economy, that job falls to somebody else, people we call entrepreneurs, right? Entrepreneur. Anybody ever see the movie Trading Places with Eddie Murphy? And he says, I can't even spell entrepreneur, but now I am one. All right? It's entrepreneur. Yeah. Ah. Now, interesting. When I'm typing something up and I happen to use entrepreneurship or entrepreneur, my spell checker says it's a mistake. Right? It doesn't like French, I guess. Okay. Of course, this is a French word, entrepreneur. Huh? Somebody who's in between, right? Okay. This is the key ingredient. These are individuals who are willing to risk their time, their money, to assemble these other three pieces of resources in order to produce goods and services, okay? Now, this is the biggest difference between a free market and a non-free market economy, okay? In Cuba, we don't have entrepreneurs. Well, there are a few, but they're kept way down, okay? We don't have entrepreneurs in Cuba. We don't have them in North Korea. Entrepreneurs are individuals who exploit others, okay? Who hire you, make you work, and they get rich. That's according to communist or socialist theory, right? So they're not allowed to exist in these areas, in these countries that embrace non-free market systems, which are few and far between, okay? They are absolutely vital to a growing economy. Why do we have entrepreneurs? Why are people willing to risk their time, their money, to assemble these other factors to go into business for the purpose of doing what? What do they want to do? Making money. Exactly right, okay? If they could not make any money, would we have entrepreneurs? Hell no, okay? So we have to, in order to get entrepreneurs, we have to provide rewards for them, meaning money. That if they take a risk and they are successful, they will get rewarded, okay? Now, what does this do for us? What do entrepreneurs do for us as members of the society? Do they provide benefits to us? Yes, they do, okay? This is the whole reason why we have progressive, growing economies in Western countries, free market countries, and why we don't get them in places like Cuba or North Korea or the former Soviet Union. It's because of the existence of entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurs, in their own attempts to become rich, to get higher economic power or whatever, okay, provide untold benefits to the people in the society. If they do not provide us with these benefits, they don't get rich. Okay? You're all familiar with the richest person in the United States, right? Who is? Mr. Gates. Okay, he's not the richest person in the world, though, right? No. Who is? Do you know? I think he's a Mexican guy, right? Yeah. Cell phone king, right? Yeah, imagine. That's pretty cool. Gates, what did Gates do? Of course, he invented Windows, right? Now, all of you are way too young to know pre-Windows. Yeah, okay. Well, let's not get into that. I appreciate what you're saying very much, but let's just say that he invented it. Okay. Before Windows, you could not use a computer unless you were trained in specialized computer languages like COBOL, Fortran, BASIC, C++. All of these languages, you had to know one of them at least in order to use a computer. You had to be able to speak its language. So how many people could use a computer? Practically nobody, okay? But when Gates came out with Windows, what did that do? That put the computer in front of every person. Everybody is now capable of utilizing the benefits that a computer provides, right? okay? Now, did Gates do that because he wanted to help people use computers? No. Why? He wanted to make money. He wanted to get rich, right? And if he comes up with a great new idea, something that helps us become more efficient, do things better, less waste, make us more money, then what do? We buy it, and they get rich. So it's through their efforts to become rich themselves that entrepreneurs provide untold benefits to other people. I mean, is there any doubt that computers have revolutionized the way that we live and the way that we do business? I mean, can you imagine? I grew up when I was a little boy. Okay. If you wanted to talk to somebody on the phone, you had to be home and they had to be home. Okay? You both had to be in your houses. All right? There were no cell phones. There were no calculators. We had to do everything using those slide rules that I talked about, or by hand, right? Can you imagine what it was brutal to create a test for college students, because you had to type out everything. You had to think up all the questions and answers and type them out and then put them on a mimeograph. Imagine that. Filthy machine, okay? So pre-technology, much slower to do things, okay? You didn't have the information that you can get today on a computer. That information wasn't available, all right? Good morning. Okay. Seat in the back over there. Okay. So what does Gates and people like him, they revolutionized our lives, made us far more efficient, allowed us to gather information and data that we can use real time. All of these things improved our lives, right? And this is what entrepreneurs do. If they come up with great ideas, our lives get better. It's the key ingredient. But without entrepreneurs, we don't get these advances in technology. We don't get these better ways of doing things, okay? And our economies can't grow. Our lives don't improve, which is why we don't have many of these systems left anymore, okay? Because they don't deliver, because they lack the key ingredient, entrepreneurs, okay? Individuals willing to risk their time and money to assemble the other factors of production in order to produce goods and services that they hope people will buy because it helps their lives and will make them rich, okay? And what do we have to have in order to get entrepreneurs? We have to have protection for private property, okay? We have to have confidence that our private property rights, the right to use private property in the way that we see fit, and to take the benefits of the use of that private property, our private property rights have to be protected. If Bill Gates invented Windows and he went to the patent office to patent it, and the government said, "Oh, that looks good. I think we'll take that, Mr. Gates. That's going to benefit everybody. Thanks for bringing it up. See you later. Go home." Okay? Do you think if he thought that would happen, that he would have bothered to invent Windows? No, he wouldn't. And this is what happens in socialist states, that when somebody comes up with a great idea, should that happen, the state expropriates that, takes it, and so that the benefits can be shared equally. So the rewards, the incentives for coming up with great ideas in these societies and these economies are missing, okay? Without rewards, without private property protection, we don't get entrepreneurs. Without entrepreneurs, we don't get great new ideas. Without great new ideas about how to do things, how to be more efficient, better processes, better products, our lives don't improve, okay? So this is the key ingredient, entrepreneurship, okay? Anybody going to be an entrepreneur? Run your own business? Yeah? Cool. Ah, excellent. I tried to run my own business, a wood exporting business, exporting wood from the United States to Europe. But both my partners were complete jerk losers. Oh, well. All right, there's one more item, and it's called human capital. Okay. This is raw labor, human labor, somebody to run the drill press, right? Somebody to feed the hopper. Human capital is a higher level of labor, if you will. These are individuals with expertise, with training, with education, with skills, with experience, okay, that allows them to make a more significant contribution to the production process. These are the people who know how to adapt the machinery, how to reconfigure the systems, how to, well, whatever, okay? You're all working on your human capital right here, right? Making yourself a more valuable resource. That's why you're here, because you're working on your own human capital, your education, your training that will allow you to hopefully get a good job when you get out of here. This book doesn't talk about it, but there's sometimes some other economists believe that there's another factor of production that should be included because today, in the modern world, it is so significant, and that's known as technology, okay? Technology. That technology is so important to economic growth that we should probably consider it a separate factor of production, okay? But we don't. All right. Oh, I'm sorry. Was that all right? Does that go back? Huh? Oh, it goes down to the bottom? Oh, interesting. Okay. All right. I got a new washer and dryer yesterday. It looks so complicated. All right. So resources, these resources are scarce, okay? We have to decide how we're going to use them. And when we use them for one thing, we can't use them for another. We live in a world of trade-offs. If I want to get up and go to school, I can't stay home and play with my dogs, okay? They had a whole year. All right. Goods versus economic goods. A non-economic good is a good that gets produced that nobody wants to buy or nobody wants to have at a zero price. Okay, even if it was free, you wouldn't want it. What could that be? I don't know, toxic chemicals, pollutants, right? Anything else is pretty much an economic good. Okay? Wants and needs, talked about this last time. Wants are the things that we desire to have. Needs are the things that we have to survive, to stay alive. Okay? Needs are very limited in number, but wants are unlimited in number. There's no end to the things that we could desire to have or to do, okay? Now, because our resources are scarce, we have to choose how we're going to use them, right? And if we use them for one thing, can't use them for the other. When we decide to use our resource for a particular activity, what we gave up, what we could have done instead is defined as the cost of that activity, okay? In economics, cost is always defined as what you gave up, what you would have used that resource for instead, okay? Choice number two, not all possible choices, but only what you would have used it for instead, like that thing I said last time, right? Oop, that's not going to work. Okay, you have a choice, come to school, okay, sleep, which most of you would have done, right? Play video. I wasted almost an entire day doing that yesterday. When I saw it was 2 o'clock, I was like, I'm going to kill myself. I got sucked in again. Right? So I had to scramble to get everything done before my wife got home. Okay? All right, so you came to school. That was the choice to use your, now remember that time is not really a productive resource, okay? We're using it as an example, but when I went through those resources, otherwise known as the factors of production, we don't include time in that, okay? But it is kind of a resource for us, right? We have a limited amount, morning, okay? All right, so you went to school. For you, okay, the cost, which is always defined as opportunity cost, that foregone opportunity, what you could have done instead, okay? Cost of you coming to school was sleeping, okay? That was your cost, which means this was not a cost for you because you weren't going to do that anyway. If you hadn't come to school, you'd be there snoring away, right? Okay? So you did not give up the opportunity to play video games because you weren't going to do that anyway, all right? So in economics, cost is always defined as opportunity cost, and that is always choice number 2. What you would have used that resource for instead if you hadn't used it the way you did, all right? Okay? Okay. All right, now, get up there. Well, that's interesting. Why did that one go to 4, but that one stayed at 1? All right, not important. Okay. Now, we can illustrate opportunity cost and the trade-off that we face by using what's called a production possibilities curve, okay? The PPC, the production possibilities curve, the PPC, okay? And again, the key word is possibilities. When I draw the graph, the curve, what the curve defines is what is possible, okay? What is possible, theoretically possible to achieve, what you could do. Let's say that you had a big test the day after tomorrow, okay? And you have the day off tomorrow. You have 8 hours to study. You have 2 tests coming up on Friday, okay? You've got one in economics and you've got one in math, all right? So you could graph your planned study time for tomorrow. If this is econ, okay, you can study from 0 to 8 hours. If this is, what did I say, math? I had to teach math here one year. I had to teach math 090, 095. Anybody take that? No? Good. I had to teach math addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division to Bunker Hill students. I was like, how do you get out of high school? Okay, it was the worst time of my life. Well, other than when my daughter was 13. Okay, now, if you decide that you're going to study all day on math because you got the econ down because your teacher is so awesome. Okay, that if you could study 8 hours of math, which means none of econ. Or you may be struggling, let's say, in economics, but you're a math genius. So you devote all 8 hours. Wouldn't that be horrible, studying economics for 8 hours? Okay, you can do all 8 hours there. Or you can decide, well, you'd better divide them up 50-50, okay? Oops, I don't want to put points there because that might mislead you. Or 6 and 2, or 2 and 6, okay? So these are all points on a line, okay, that show what is possible for you to do. That studying economics plus math equals 8 hours, okay? All right, so far? Okay. Now, could you decide after you've studied like 2 hours of economics that you really need to spend 7 hours more studying math, okay? No, that would be a point out here, okay? You don't, now remember, I'm going to get rid of these bits, okay? This is a theoretical line, okay? Remember that actual production is defined as, is shown as a point, a single point. If you use all 8 hours, okay, efficiently, you spend 6 hours doing math and 2 hours doing economics, then your total study time would be here. That would be math plus economics equals 8 hours. Or you study 2 hours math and 6 hours economics, okay? You're out here, equals 8 hours, right? But let's say that your girlfriend or boyfriend calls you up around 1 o'clock, okay? They know you're home studying, and they talk to you for an hour, okay? Are you going to be able to get out here? You're going to be able to achieve 8 hours of studying? No, you're not. you're going to be somewhere inside the curve, only getting 7 hours, okay? And then let's say your mother comes to visit, and she talks to you for another 2 hours, okay? Now what's going to happen? Your actual production is going to be even farther away from the maximum line and closer to 0. Let's say that you decided to play a video game for an hour before you started studying, and pretty soon you realize that it's 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Okay? How much studying did you get done? None. You're back here. You wasted all of that resource. Okay? So if you use the resource efficiently, you can achieve maximum possible production somewhere, a point somewhere on this curve. But if you waste resources, waste your time, your actual production will be somewhat less than maximum. Easy, right? And if you waste all of your time, like I did yesterday, actual production is 0. All right? Okay? But you can't get out here. Okay? Let's say you knew you had 8 hours from 8 till noon, and then from noon till 4 o'clock, and then you had to be at work at 5 o'clock. Okay? But your boss calls you at 2:30 in the afternoon and says, listen, we have enough people for tonight. You don't need to come in. And you say, oh, great. I have another 2 hours I can study. Okay? That means I could now do 10 hours of math, or 10 hours of economics, or 5 and 5. And what has happened is that what is possible to produce has increased. Okay? Has increased because of additional resources now made available. Okay? If we get more resources, what becomes possible to produce in different combinations of economics and math, if we get more time, we can produce more. In terms of production of goods, if we get more machines or more labor, right, or more raw materials, what becomes possible to produce increases. The production possibilities curve will shift outwards. That represents economic growth. Okay? What is possible to produce increases. Now, that's not the only way to get economic growth. How else can we get more production? Can we get more production from the same resources that we have now? We can if, yes, we get an advance in technology. An advance in technology allows us to produce more than we could in the past with the same raw materials and labor, right? Accountants, before they had computer systems, how many tax returns do you think they could do in a day? Not very many. But then when you get a nice automated system, right, you can just crank them right out. You can produce way more per person, okay, per hour of work, all right? Okay, so far, getting a little messy. All right. So we have a production possibilities curve that shows what is maximum possible production in different combinations of A and B goods. If we use all resources efficiently, actual production will be a point somewhere on the line. We cannot get out here. If we waste resources, in a society, in an economy, that means like factories aren't running full-time, individuals may be unemployed, okay? We have human resources that we're not using, or raw materials that we're not exploiting. Okay? We can always do less than maximum. The more resource we waste, the closer to nothing, to no production, we get. If we had 100% unemployment, would that change what we could produce if everybody was working? No. But if we have 100% unemployment, what we actually produce will be nothing. Okay? But it doesn't change what we could do. Okay? Fully employed, we're out here. We have 5% unemployment. Now we're somewhere inside. We're not producing everything we could because we're not using everybody. If we have 10% unemployment, now we're even farther inside. If we have 20%, even farther inside, okay? because we're not using these resources, it doesn't change what we could do if we use them, all right? That's why this is the possibilities curve, and what we actually do is represented by a point, okay? Now, we also have a trade-off. If we're producing this amount of B goods here and that amount of A goods, and we decide we want to have more B goods, can we get more B goods without giving up A's? No. If we are already using all available resources, in order to get more of these, we have to take less of those, okay? So we have a trade-off. If we use our resources more for this activity, we have to use less resources for this activity, okay? If you spend more time sleeping, you have less time studying, okay? Pretty straightforward, all right? So far, so good? Okay. So now, these curves have all been drawn so that there's two goods, A and B goods, okay? A goods on here, B goods on that axis. Oh, I didn't know I could use my hand. All right, that's even better. I like that. Okay, all right. So, do we make only two goods? Yes, we do. Okay, we only make two categories of goods. Okay, consumer goods, those things that we buy to satisfy some of our unlimited wants. Okay, that's one class of goods. We can call those consumer goods or consumption goods. Okay. These are called consumption goods, goods that we buy to satisfy our unlimited wants. And we can make capital machines to make those goods. Okay? These are the only two kinds of goods that we make in general sense. The goods themselves and the machines to make those goods. All right? Yes? That's a good question. Those really don't appear there, okay? As we're going to see as we go along, we really only care primarily about what we call final goods, goods that aren't going to be further processed, okay? In fact, I think I talked about this last time when we talked about GDP, we don't include the value of intermediate goods, goods that are going to be used to produce something else. Like when the farmer grows some wheat, right? Let's say he grows $100 worth of oats. And what's he going to do with that? He's going to sell it to the cereal manufacturer, and they're going to make Cheerios out of it, okay? We're going to count the value of the Cheerios, but not the wheat, because the value of the Cheerios includes the wheat, okay? So we don't include raw materials, things that are going to be further processed as part of our definition of consumption goods.
How do you calculate consumption of goods for stuff that are intangible, such as services?
Good question. Don't know. That's a little bit more complicated for us, okay? That's a good question. Where do services come in? Well, we know what the difference between goods and services are, right? Goods are tangible, have physical dimension. The value is through possession, ownership, and use, whereas services are intangible. They do not have physical dimension. And the value of a service is through the experience, right? Through the experience. Like this is a service, kind of, right? All right, so we can only make two different kinds of goods, consumption goods and capital, the machines to make these consumption goods or the goods themselves, okay? Is there anything else? No, there isn't. Okay? If we use all of our resources to produce consumption goods, that actual production is out here, okay? Is that a good idea? We can have maximum possible consumption goods available for everybody, right? If we don't make any capital. Now, you need machines to make consumption goods. So let's say that, in fact, we'll say that 10 machines can produce 100 consumption goods. Okay? Okay? We'll put capital here. All right? Now, if we use all of our resources to produce consumption goods, how many consumption goods can we have next year? Okay? Well, we only have 10 machines. So we can only produce, oops, got to put that away. We can only produce 100. And the year after that, we only have 10 machines. We can only produce 100, all right? But if we sacrifice, instead of producing all consumption goods, we take fewer consumption goods and instead use those resources to produce not 0 machines, but an additional machine, okay? Remember, we live in a world of trade-offs. If we want to make machines, we don't have enough resources to continue to make the same amount of consumption goods, okay? So we sacrifice production of some consumption goods in order to make a machine. So if we make a machine this year, let's say it costs us 20 instead of 100. Oops, keep doing that. Instead of 100 consumption goods, we only produce 80, and instead we add a machine, okay? Remember, we originally could have made 100, but instead we sacrifice and we only make 80, so we can add a machine. How many consumption goods can I make next year if I add a machine? Now I can make 110 because I have 11 machines, okay? What if I do that again? Instead of actually making 110, I only make 90 consumption goods, and I add another machine. Now how many can I make? 120, okay? And what's happening to the production possibilities curve as we do this? It's shifting out, exactly right. As we are adding productive resources, the PPC is shifting out. What becomes possible to produce will increase. So we have a trade-off. We actually have 2 trade-offs, okay? We have 2 trade-offs. We have a trade-off today. In order to make machines today, we have to give up consumption goods today, okay? We have to take resources away from the production of consumption goods and use those to make capital. And we have a trade-off from today and the future. Now, this is a thing that I never understood, okay, until I became an adult, an older adult, right? Is that if you want to have more tomorrow, you have to sacrifice today. My attitude was, hey, maybe there'll be no tomorrow. Right? I used to have another attitude, too. I want to die owing as much money to as many people as possible. I don't have those attitudes anymore. All right. Not silly, I'm sure.
It's a little simple, and why now in the countries start to invest more in capital.
Mm-hmm.
Preparing all this.
Sure.
They invest more in consumption.
Sure.
For today.
Sure, absolutely. Very few people. There are some societies, Japanese society, probably a best example. There aren't very many people that are long-term in orientation, okay? This tends to be a feature of, are you familiar with, no, you're probably not. You never had international business. There's a guy named Hofstede who did a cultural analysis of different people around the world. And one of the things he didn't look at were people in Asia. But he came up with a new paradigm to describe what motivates or their cultural characteristics. And one of the things that distinguishes people, generally speaking, this is not 100% true, of course, from that part of the world is that they tend to have much longer-term orientation. Or people in this country, very short-term, and that spells out in business, okay? Japanese firms are willing to take losses in the short term in order to achieve long-term goals. But here in the United States, you don't make your quarter, you're fired. Okay? The stockholders want a profit today, not 5 years from now, all right? So we tend to concentrate here. We have a much shorter term orientation. We want stuff now, okay? We're not going to sacrifice so much so that we can have more in the future, okay? But this is what you do. You have to do. If you want to have more tomorrow, you have to sacrifice today. You've got to save your money, not spend it all, right? Not go into debt. Save it for the future. I didn't teach my daughter very well. She's saving. Me, spend, spend, spend. That's the way it used to be. Not so much anymore.
Well, but when it comes to macroeconomics, is the state who has to invest in capital goods or are the companies?
Companies. Yep. Entrepreneurs, individuals and companies, yes, absolutely. Okay. Yeah. In a free market society. The Soviet Union, right? The old Soviet Union. I mean, they decided that this would be their combination. Okay? You aren't getting squat for consumption goods. And we're going to concentrate all most of the resources in the production of industrial equipment so that we can compete with a capitalist West, all right? And they forced people to sacrifice, forced them to sacrifice. They had no choice, okay? All right so far? So 2 trade-offs. We sacrifice consumption goods today so we can produce capital today. And a trade-off between now and the future. We give up consumption goods today so that we can have more consumption in the future. Okay so far? All right. Now, I should have left that up, but at any rate, every time I've drawn this curve so far, it's been a straight line, okay? That this curve from here to here has been a straight line. And any mathematicians here? No? I used to be pretty good in math until I had calculus. You know? I was like, what is this? Anyway, what this line shows as a straight line is that the trade-off is constant. That if you want to get 1 more of these, let's say you have to give up 2 of these. And then you decide you want to get another 1 of these, you got to give up 2 more of these. And if you want another 1 of these, you got to give up 2 more of those, okay? So that the cost of each individual additional unit remains the same, okay? But that's not the case. Okay? I think the book says that the production possibilities curve is bowed outwards. Wrong. It is not bowed outwards. It is bowed inwards, okay? Meaning that it doesn't go out like this. Got to remember to put that away, okay? It doesn't go out like that. It's curved in at the ends. I'll draw a bigger picture. Okay? It is curved in like that. All right? That these pieces are gone. It's not that it says bowed outwards. That would suggest that, but that's not the case. It means that if it was a constant trade-off, that would be the curve, like that. What this shows is that the opportunity cost of each additional unit of one good, the opportunity cost of each additional unit increases. You want 1 more of these A's, you got to give up 2 B's. Now you decide you want another A, okay? This time you have to give up 3 B's to get that 1. And then you want to get another A. This time, you have to give up 4. So what it is costing you in terms of B's for every additional A gets larger and larger, okay? All right? Why is that? Why does it matter? Here's an illustration, okay? Let's say that I'm a farmer and I can produce I have 100 acres of land. And I decide that on 50 acres, and let's say each acre will produce a ton of this product, all right? So I've got 50 acres that I'm going to put into rice production. And I'm going to put 50 acres into the production of wheat, okay? Now, in order to grow rice, what kind of land do you need to have? Do you know? Wet. It has to be wet, and it has to be flat. And if it's not flat, it has to be made flat, right? Rice paddies are flat, okay? So you need flat land with lots of water. Okay? What type of land do you need to grow wheat? Doesn't matter, right? It can be hilly, I mean, not mountainous, but it can be at least hilly. And does it need to be wet? No. Pretty much wheat gets, watered by the rain, okay? So we can have hilly land. Doesn't matter, and it can be dry. All right? So let's say that I'm a farmer and I find that I have 50 acres of land that is perfect for growing wheat, and 50 acres that are perfect for growing rice, okay? So I can produce 50 tons of rice and 50 tons of wheat. Now let's say that I decide, because let's say the price of rice is going up, that I want to put more land into the production of rice. So I want to get another 10 tons of rice, okay? Where am I going to get the resources to produce rice? From the wheat. What type of land am I going to look for? Flat and wet. And let's say that I find 10 acres, in fact, that are good for rice. All right? So I give up 10 tons of wheat, and I get 10 tons of rice. Now I decide I want to put even more land into the production of rice. I want to get another 10 tons. Where am I going to get the land? From the wheat. But I already took the land that was flat and wet. Okay? There's none of that left now. That resource is gone, that quality resource. Okay? What's left? Now, in order to get more rice, I have to take land that's fairly hilly. It does have some water. It's not too bad. But unlike this land, it won't produce 1 ton of rice. It'll only produce a half a ton. Okay? So to get 10 more tons of rice, how many acres do I have to take out of wheat? Now 20. Okay? Now I decide I want to get 10 more tons of rice. Okay? I have to go back to this land. I've only got 20 acres left. Do you think it's good for growing rice? No. It's hilly and dry as a bone. It'll only produce 1/10 of a ton of rice. So to get 10 more tons, I need 100 acres. Okay? I only have 20. How many am I going to get? I'm only going to get 2 more. Okay? 2 more tons. But if I had enough, it would take me another 100 acres, right, to get 10 more tons. So the cost of each additional unit in terms of what I have to give up in wheat gets larger and larger. The first 10 tons cost me 10 tons of wheat. But the next 10 tons of rice, I had to give up 20 tons of wheat because I took the best resource first. Perfectly useful in making rice. But when I went back to get more resources, what's left is not as good. It's not as productive for this new activity. So I have to take more of it to get the same amount of production. And then finally at the end, what's left over, fine for growing wheat, but terrible for growing rice. So to get a little bit more, I have to sacrifice a lot of wheat just to get that little more rice. Okay with that? So this is the reason why the PPC is bowed outward. Okay? Opportunity costs always increase. And it doesn't matter whether we want more of these or more of those. Okay? Don't forget this. Opportunity costs always increase. Always. Okay? As far as we're concerned. Some people might dispute that, right? The more you concentrate in doing one thing, the better you get at it, right? So, but we're going to go with this one. Okay? Now I'm going to illustrate this one more time graphically. If I got to get used to this. Okay? Let's say we'll start here with these different combinations. I'm going to divide, I'll try to divide this up into 3 equal pieces. That's equal to that, to that. It's not very good, but all right. Now let's say we were here and we want to get to there. Well, to get to there, we've got to sacrifice that bit there, right? Okay. Now we want to get a little bit more. Now we have to sacrifice more. And then to get that same amount more, we have to sacrifice all of that. All right? So opportunity costs increase. This bit, same amount, costs that. This additional same amount costs more. That last piece, oop, where'd you go? Is that it? Nope. All right, okay? That's just another way of illustrating that opportunity costs always increase. What we have to sacrifice for each additional unit of an A or a B, what we have to sacrifice in terms of the other gets larger and larger and larger, which is why this is a curve. If it was a constant trade-off, it would be like that, okay? It would be a straight line like that. Okay? Good? All right. What's next? Okay. I think I covered everything. This last section, comparative advantage and absolute advantage, I'm not going to ask you anything about that on any quiz or test, all right? These are, well, I know them in terms of trade theories, okay? International, why nations trade with each other. A guy named Adam Smith. Anybody ever hear of Adam Smith? Yeah, okay. He's the second most famous economist of all time, probably after Keynes. Adam Smith wrote a book in 1776, a big year, right? What else happened then? American Revolution, right? Start right here in Boston. Okay. Adam Smith wrote a book called, the short title, The Wealth of Nations, right? And he did two things in this book. He was the first person to describe how a free market economic system worked. Okay? He came up with this concept of the invisible hand. This is the idea that individuals pursuing their own self-interest, entrepreneurs trying to get rich, provide benefits to society. Okay? That was Adam Smith's idea. The other idea that he came up with was a simplified reason as to why nations trade with each other. Why there's a reason to trade goods. Why don't we just make everything ourselves? Well, we can't, right? It's one reason why we don't. We can't make everything ourselves. But there are other reasons. You don't fix your own car generally, do you? No, because you're not as good as it. You're not as efficient or as competent in that. You concentrate in doing those things that you are best at, okay? What Smith said was, if you concentrate in doing what you are the best of anybody at, you can produce more than what you need, right? And sell that surplus or trade that surplus to other countries who are producing something because they are the best at it in the world. But what Smith said is you had to have what's called an absolute advantage. You had to be either the only producer or the most efficient producer on the planet. And if you were, then you concentrated in producing that good and traded it to other nations. And you can kind of I'm sure grasp this concept fairly easily, that if you concentrate in doing what you do best, you can produce far more than if you produce all good kinds of things, right? I mean, there's an old saying, right? A jack of all trades, but master of none means you can do lots of things, but you're not particularly good at any of them, right? So if you concentrate in doing one thing, you can produce more than if you do all kinds of different things. And Smith's example, I'll just illustrate it real quick for you. What he said was that if nations concentrate in doing what they do best and trade that surplus to other nations in exchange for what they do best, there'll be more for everybody. Okay? So let's say that we have two countries, Japan and the U.S., and we only make two different goods. We make rice and we make cars. Okay? Now, Smith's theory is really grossly simplified, all right? What Smith said was that we're going to consider that both countries have equal endowments of resources, okay? And that resources are just as good for either activity. Doesn't matter what they do, they're just as productive, okay? So let's say that Japan, with half of its resources, can produce 8 rices and 6 cars. And the United States, with half of its resources, can produce 4 rice and 10 cars. Without specialization and trade, there are 12 rices available for everybody and 16 cars. But if both nations concentrate in doing what they do best and giving up what they don't do as well, then Japan will give up making cars and instead will make rice with all of its resources. The United States will give up making rice and instead will make cars. Now what's happened? Instead of only 12 rice available for everybody, we have 16. Instead of only 16 cars, now we have 20. Okay? So Japan only needs 8 rices. It'll trade that extra rice for the 10 extra cars that we have. Okay? All right? This was Smith's idea. But you had to have an absolute advantage, okay, in Smith's world. And again, no transportation costs, no trade barriers, everybody using the same currency, all of these simplifications, all right, that Smith came up with. Really unrealistic, but you can still see what he was trying to get at. Okay? That's absolute advantage. Comparative advantage says you don't have to be the best in order to engage in trade, produce. You just, if that was the case, where would all of our wine come from? France only, right? Pretty much. I mean, if you think French wine is the best. I tend to think California wine is the best now. But at any rate, you would only have one country producing that because they would be the best and everybody else would have to do something else. But we have France, we have Italy, we have Germany, we have the United States, we have Australia, we have South Africa, we even have Lebanese wine. Right? I had a bottle of Massachusetts produced wine this past weekend. Ugh. It was awful. At any rate, you don't have to be the best in order to benefit from trade. If you just do what you do best, right, then you can be more productive than doing things that you're not as good at. You can produce more than you really need, and you can trade that extra to other nations for what they are doing themselves best. Not the best in the world necessarily, but best for themselves. It's fairly obvious. I mean, you come to school and you have to take a bunch of different courses, right? Like economics. But let's say you're really your real expertise is in IT, right? Do you have to be the best IT person in order to get a decent job and be able to make money for yourself? No, you just have to be good. Maybe you stink at econ. You're not going to be an economist, right? But you're pretty good at IT, at computer stuff. So you're not the best in the world, but you concentrate in doing what you do best, and you're going to be better off than if you tried to become an economist, right? I was going to be a biology major in college. I went to my first chemistry class, changed my major immediately. I was a biology major for one day. I don't know what I was thinking. I didn't even like biology in high school. Right? I told you what I majored in, didn't I? Oh. No. Russian. Yeah, I majored in Russian language. Yeah, useful. That's why I had to go back and get another degree. Right? All right, so that's pretty much about that. We don't need to belabor that point because we're not going to talk about that anymore. All right.